Hey guys, I'm Ashley and today we are going to make this custom name badge inspired by Encanto here on Chip Builds. Now I do sell these in my shop. If you want to buy one, I'll put the link down below, or if you want access to the design file, this will be available in my Patreon. If you join my Patreon for $5 a month, you have access to all the files I make for all of these different projects. Okay, for this project, I am using 1/8 inch maple plywood. This is one of my favorite materials to use with the Glowforge, and I just get this from my local lumber supplier here in Southern California. It's way cheaper than trying to buy the proof grade material from Glowforge's website, and I can just get it pretty instantly. This comes in a 5x5 sheet, and then I just rip it down on the table saw to the correct size for the Glowforge. So because this project has a lot of engraving in it, I am going to actually put a masking tape over this wood. That way I'm not going to have any kind of like soot or residue that I'm going to have to sand after, because the words are kind of thin and I just don't want to lose any of the detail in my project. And so this is the masking tape I use for all of my Glowforge materials, and this is from Expressions Vinyl, and it's a kind of like a thin white masking tape. I highly recommend it. I think this is fantastic, and I'll put a link to it down in the description below. But so one thing you do want to be careful about when you're using masking with the Glowforge is you want to make sure it's super secure down there, because otherwise it has the potential to kind of pop up off of your material and start a fire, and that is definitely not what you want. So if you are going to use your own masking, just be really careful and make sure it's really down, because the last thing you want is a fire with your Glowforge. So when applying masking tape, you definitely need to have some kind of scraper. Otherwise, it's not going to stick down properly and you're just going to have a bad time because you're going to start a fire, and that's not what we want. Now, I do have these different little vinyl scrapers in my shop, and it has my logo on it. And so if you want to support me, I have a link to those down below, and it has a hard side and it has this felt side, which is really good when you're doing Cricut projects with vinyl because it's not going to scratch the vinyl around. But it's really great for this application as well. Now, because I'm using wood and I'm in a garage and I do other woodworking projects, a lot of everything has like sawdust and just kind of some dust and dirt on it. So what I kind of do before I even put the tape on is I just kind of brush off any of the excess sawdust or dirt or cat hair from Elsa. You know, just that way I have a nice clean surface to stick to, because that's gonna definitely help things. And so all you do, just unroll some of it and do kind of like a preliminary stick down, and then get like your knife or something and just, you know, cut a section of it. And then so as you can see already, the corners of this are kind of like flipping up. And so if we put it in a laser just like this, this is gonna just pop up and catch fire, and we don't want that. So you just use the scraper. And I just like to go in a couple different directions. So I'll go diagonal like this. And as you can see already, the edges are not popping up. And then I'll just go the opposite diagonal. And for the wood too, you can just use the hard side, it doesn't matter. And then I will also go left to right, and then I'll go up and down. And so now I'm really confident that this is not gonna lift up and catch fire, and I can put it in my Glowforge, and then it will just save a lot of the sanding work later. So we're going to be making this design here in Adobe Illustrator. This is just a program that I'm the most familiar with. I am a graphic designer, and so I use Illustrator and the Adobe suite on a daily basis. And so that is what I'm going to be teaching you guys how to make this file. So when I design for the Glowforge, I make a new document, and you can just come up to the top and you can do new, and then you can put in your custom settings. I always do 19x11 when I'm designing for the Glowforge, because that is the size of the bed, and it just lets me know if I'm designing things way too big or what. But so as you can see, this design is fairly simple. We've all seen this design of the hello, my name is blah blah blah. And I just really thought it would be funny to make this. And so it's really just like one shape. So we're gonna come over here to our shape tool, and right now the default is the rectangle tool. And if you hit M, that will be a shortcut, and then you can just use it. But if you hold and click on top of it, we can come to our rounded rectangle tool. And I can just come over here, you know, and I can just kind of eyeball it. Obviously we have the one I already made, so we can kind of go off it. And also, if you don't like the curve of the rounded rectangle, you can change it by just moving this circle you know, if you want like no, if you want it just to be a sharp corner, or if you want it more or less. I just typically leave it at the default. It's not really anything too crazy. And then the other thing is, now I'm just gonna get my line segment tool. I'm gonna come over here and I'm gonna hold shift and just draw a straight line, and I'm gonna do the same thing over here for the bottom, holding shift and doing a straight line. And now we can see we have all of the parts that we need to make this design. Now I'm gonna make a copy of this rounded rectangle shape. What I'm gonna do is hold down Option on my keyboard, and you can see the mouse kind of change right there as I held it, and then I'm just gonna click and drag, and now we have a duplicate of it. And you can also just do copy and paste as well. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm going to select the two line segments and our shape, and I'm gonna come over here to the Pathfinder window. If you can't find it, you can come up to the top and hit window and scroll down and make sure your Pathfinder tools are open. I'm gonna come down here and I'm gonna hit divide. And so what that should have done, if it's done it correctly, it has turned this into 3 different parts. So we can ungroup it, and then I should be able to delete that middle section. And so now we have the top and bottom shape that we want. And the reason I made this copy was so that we had our cut outline, and I'm just gonna come use my alignment tools at the very top here and make sure that's all square and centered and good to go. And then I'm gonna click on this one shape, and I'm gonna get rid of the fill color because we don't need that, because this is for the laser. And I'm gonna bring the stroke color to the foreground, and as you can see, it's black. If you wanted to toggle back and forth, you just hit the X on your keyboard and it will bring either the fill color or the stroke color. And I'm gonna change that to red because that is gonna let the Glowforge know that it is a cut. Now I'm gonna click this top and bottom piece, and I'm gonna just hit this little switch button, and that will switch it. And then I'm gonna take the stroke color off. And so now we have basically the shape that we want for our name badge. And then now we're gonna do this part, the hello, my name is. So I'm gonna type out hello, and I'm gonna switch it to Helvetica because that is one of my favorite fonts to use. But I'm gonna do Helvetica bold for the hello part. And then you can kind of just click and drag and hold shift and kind of get it to the size that you want. I am gonna, with this selected, I am gonna change that color to white so that I can see it up on my black. So obviously this is too big, so let's bring it down a bit. And that looks like a pretty decent color. And then we are just gonna hit T for the type tool again. And then now we can do my name is. And that, as you can see, since we already selected Helvetica, it is in Helvetica bold, but I am gonna change it to Helvetica regular. But first it's gotta be selected, and then I'm gonna hit regular. And this again, we are gonna click on it and change it to white so that we can see what we're doing. So I'm gonna just select these 2 pieces of text. I'm gonna come up here to align at the very top, and then I'm just gonna center it to each other, just so we can kind of make sure it's all where we want it to be. I actually want the my name is up a little bit, and I think to the left a little. It's not always a perfect process when you do use the alignment tool. Sometimes you do have to eyeball it. I think that's pretty good for me. So then I'm going to select both of these again, and I'm going to come up to type, and I'm going to click create outlines. Now that has turned the text into paths, and that is something that the Glowforge can read. And then I am going to group these together by hitting Command G. So now what I can do is I can select all of this, come back up to the alignment tool and hit align center. Now I want this text centered a little bit, so I'm just gonna nudge it up. And that looks pretty good to me. Now the next part we wanna do is the Hernando, and I'm scared of nothing. So we're gonna hit our type tool again, and we are just gonna do the caps lock, and we are gonna spell this out. Hernando, and I'm scared of nothing, with obviously an exclamation point because he kind of screams it. So we're gonna select that all, and we're gonna do justify the text to center, and then we are gonna change the font to DK Lemon Yellow Sun. I know that's kind of a crazy name, but that's what we're going with. And then we can kind of just bring it out, hold shift, and kind of want this to fill like a good portion of this badge. And so that looks pretty good to me. And then I'll just do the same thing, select everything and hit center. Now this, I am gonna do that same thing. I'm gonna come up to type and create outlines. And then now that is a path. So only other thing that we are gonna do to this text is we are gonna change it to the color blue. And that is so that we have 3 different orders of operation for the Glowforge to read. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna come up to File, I'm gonna do Save As, And then I'm going to come down here and save it as a PDF, and that is what I'm going to bring into the Glowforge software. So now I'm in the Glowforge app where you upload your designs and everything, and I'm going to click New Design, and I'm just going to hit this plus where it says Import Artwork, and then I'm going to click Upload, and then I see here I have my documents, and I'm going to hit Hernando. And sometimes it takes a second for Glowforge to actually import it. It just depends on how complex your design is. So for this project, I am using 1/8" maple plywood, so I am going to just choose the pre-made settings that Glowforge has in their software, and it has this cut setting here, so proof grade cut. Sometimes if it's not doing what it needs to do, I will bring the speed down a little bit, and that will usually help, but you just got to kind of play with settings sometimes. And for this bottom text here, I'm going to do an engrave, but instead of the standard graphic engrave, I'm going to do my own custom settings, and that is 500 speed with 30 power and 225 lines an inch with just 1 pass. For me, I like that better because I get a nice light engrave, because the standard engrave that they have for these proof grade materials is pretty dark. Now you could do like a contrasting thing, like you can have this top one be the 1/8" engrave with my custom settings, and then have this bottom one be the standard and that's a bit darker, but I want them to be the same, so I just have the speed 500 with the power 30. And so now that we have our settings all ready to go, we can place this artwork wherever we want. I'm going to come up here to the top where it says these 3 dots, then it says more, and I'm going to click set focus, and then I'm just going to click right in the center of the piece of wood that I'm going to be using. So now that this is ready to go and I'm happy with all my settings, I'm going to come up here to this button that says ready, and I'm going to click it so that we can cut out and engrave our design. And according to Glowforge software, this will take 9 minutes and 18 seconds. Also, when you're going to go to remove the masking, I use these plastic razor blades, and it comes with a handle, but I cannot find it right now. And this is really good, and it will just very quickly pop up your masking, and it will be pulled off of the little bits and pieces really well. So I highly recommend these, and these will also be linked down in the description below. Okay, so now that we've removed all of the masking material, the next thing we are going to do is we are going to glue on this pin backing so that we can actually use this as like a name badge. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue this on with E6000. This is one of my favorite adhesives to use when doing any kind of wood projects like this. But as we can see, the metal on the back side of this pin is really smooth, and I want to get a really good bond between this metal piece and the wood. So I'm just going to take a sanding sponge with a medium grit and just scuff it up a little bit. And then now we can see there's some lines etched into the back there, like scratched up, and so that will give the place for the glue to kind of really get down in there and adhere really well to the back of the wood. So I'm going to turn this over, make sure that I'm at the correct orientation, and then I've just made sure that the opening is at the correct orientation, and then now we can glue it. Now be warned, sometimes when you have a big tube like this, it is going to just come rushing out. So I'm just going to give a generous dab of this glue, and then I'm going to kind of just eyeball it and try and get it as close to the upper middle as possible. I'm doing the upper middle because it is a little on the heavier side, and that way it's not going to flip forward if you do pin this to like a bag or your coat or something. And so I'm just going to push it down in there, let there be a little bit of squeeze out, and then we are good. And as you can see, the glue is still coming out. So you just make sure you put your cap on as quick as possible. Now with E6000, it does say that it takes 24 hours to fully cure, so I'm definitely going to wait that time amount before I use this.
I'm Hernando, and I'm scared of nothing.
Well, you guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you found some useful things in it. I'm super obsessed with Encanto right now, and I'm sure a lot of you are as well. And this was just a fun little project that I had in my head that I couldn't get out. And so, of course, I had to film it and teach you guys how to do it as well. Let me know if you guys have any questions down in the comments below, and I'll do my best to get back to you. So thanks for watching, guys. See ya.